the phrase new level, new devil came to mind, and I've heard this used in lots of different contexts, but I think it is particularly pertinent in terms of personal development and, yeah, just even in your own creative practice. Essentially, the idea that we are progressing along a pathway or trajectory with a view to reaching a target or arriving at a goal or destination, and this sense that part of that process or pathway is constructed in a cumulative building, which is characterized by an improvement of skill set and maybe refinement, and that there's often then this association of hierarchy or levels or climbing to the next challenge on this kind of scale. And it's an interesting one because I think even if we are looking at our pathway of development as something that is on the horizontal plane and we're just, taking bite-size chunks out of a bigger, more complex problem, and we're moving in a stepwise motion and kind of meandering along, we can be sort of lulled into that security in a sense that everything is on the same kind of terrain. But I think it is helpful, it can introduce its own problems working with a scale of hierarchy, because that is essentially constructed around conceptual frameworks of power, and it can be really helpful to actually ask ourselves when we are working through a problem or working towards a goal, what is it that we are actually trying to achieve, and what are our motivations, and what characteristics or qualities about that development journey am I ascribing to, consciously or unconsciously, but just the sense of what am I buying into, and if I'm progressing towards something with a view to find success within that particular modality or activity, how am I defining success and what does that mean to me? Because this idea of, climbing the proverbial ladder and reaching the next stage or the next level, if we are measuring those increments of success and development by kind of standards that have been set externally to us, it can really feel sometimes like we are in this kind of perpetual conveyor belt of reaching the next stage, but then you're churned back down and then you're back into this cycle, and that actually, where is the satisfaction and the gratification and the enjoyment and appreciation of reaching that next stage or accomplishing that next goal, if that pace and if those metrics are kind of being determined externally to us and we're not really connected with them, from a values point of view, or just even at a a soul level? Do they inspire us and embolden us and give us kind of passion and drive in a way that feels aligned with the person that we actually are? So there's that aspect to it, and then there's also this aspect of the going back to the idea of this like horizontal plane versus vertical plane. And I'm using these kind of spatial and dimensional ways of explaining this because I feel like it's helpful. The phrase that kind of sparked off this thought process, new level, new devil, was about, reaching a place where a milestone, say, or like a marker along the journey, somewhere that you have previously identified as that's somewhere that I want to get to. That's a skill that I want to have. That's, so many hours under the belt of practicing with something to reach a level of confidence or maybe even mastery, where I can say, yeah, like in that space, in that playing field, in that zone, I feel like I have integrated enough knowledge and understanding to feel like, I've arrived at a place that I previously remember thinking, oh, like there's gonna have to be time, energy, investment to reach that point. But then when we get there, how do we know we've got there? How are we acclimatizing to that? Are we acclimatizing to that because you have recognized those things and the reflection of this awareness of maybe feeling more comfortable or more well versed in a practice or an activity give you that sense of gratitude for the return on investment, the fact that you have spent the time and the energy and put in the reps or done the practice, and you get that sense of fulfillment? Or is it the awareness that you've reached this next stage? Is that actually revealed to you through the reality of feeling bored, feeling that you're not challenged, feeling that you're missing something, that you want something more, a sense of lack, essentially, and like a craving for something else, some new stimulation. And it's an interesting one because these are two really different qualities of energy, and they carry very different perspectives, and they also really change the way that we approach or engage with moving into the next stage of development on our journey. Like, for me, the place of gratitude allows for there to be a pause point, and actually a way of taking in your surroundings and coming back to the drawing board and been looking at the new skills or tools that have been acquired or developed, and creating a strategy to move forward on to the next that kind of takes into account this new this new phase that you're inviting yourself to step into, versus this other sensation which is driven by the kind of a frustration almost of feeling like I need more. And there's something nuance there about the difference between a kind of an appetite for knowledge or development, a kind of excitement, and being pulled towards something because you are energized and inspired by the kind of challenge of seeing the next marker along the pathway and being like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of feeling up for this challenge, let's go for it, versus being kind of pushed away from your current reality because you are feeling a sense of discomfort or dissatisfaction with what's going on, and just, yeah, kind of like it's not enough, it's not nourishing me, it's not feeding my soul, kind of thing. And that as a kind of quality of motivation, yeah, to move away from discomfort, I think there is a time and a place where that can be helpful, but I've never found it to be as supportive as being called towards or invited towards something, because that feels invitational and it activates within me a sort of sense of curiosity, and it engages or inspires a part of your energy that's willing to explore something new or to take on a challenge in a way that feels like I can build on that, I can feed that, and I can nourish that, versus moving away from discomfort, whilst it can give you that initial jolt towards something feels like it needs to change and I want to get away from this situation. I do feel like when you arrive through the next stage of development to the next level, if you like, that feeling has also come with you. And this is where I associate the kind of phrase new level, new devil, because it's kind of like a thorn in the side that comes with you. No matter how much work you've done, no matter what the achievement is, no matter what the reward is at the end of that next stage, there is still a feeling of dissatisfaction or lack, or just, yeah, it's not good enough. And I think this is something that is so commonly experienced for people that are engaged with creative pursuits. And when I think about it in relation to, say, education, and then kind of personal development, and then focused on vocal development, I can see so many parallels or so many different approaches and ways of exploring and learning new material or trying new things. And actually, we're coming back to this fundamental piece, which is connected to mindset, I think, is how I would categorize it. And also a kind of like philosophy of education, and also a sense of what is my way of being. when I am engaging with things that are inviting me into a space of journeying and actually moving through a process. Like, what are the templates that I carry with me? What is my default position? What is my kind of learning archetype? What are the characteristics I have that kind of shape the way that I engage with these things? So for those of you who also consider themselves lifelong learners, I think this is another interesting one to consider in terms of the next course, the next learning activity, the next thing. How often do we give ourselves a moment to actually, say there's a certificate at the end of it? Do we actually sit with that and think about all of the work that's gone into getting to that place, and the exchange of our attention and time and energy and the reward of that? Do we actually allow ourselves to fully receive that and honour that? Or do we kind of tuck it away into the filing cabinet and be like, right, okay, what's next? And there's something interesting in there about, to what extent do we actually need to consider that building capacity around receiving and what it feels like actually from a nervous system point of view to work with that and to experience that and acclimatize to that and develop perhaps a trust in that, especially if there has been disruption or damage or life experience which has created a problematic relationship with the energy of receiving. That is really valuable work to be doing alongside whatever the personal development pathway is. And I think if I bring this back to the voice specifically, that feels so pertinent, because if we're talking about vocal development and moving on to the next stage, what might that look like? Well, if you were building up to a particular performance and that involved learning new repertoire, extending your range, working with challenging passages with like complex rhythmic content, you can see there's already like a gamut of skills in there that could be part of your task to focus on to take you to the next level in development. And once you get there, what do you do with that? Is that enough? Are you satisfied? Like, what have you learned along the way? What have you had to sacrifice along the way to get there? So it's a really interesting one to consider, especially given that as an activity is so visceral and physical and will involve training through a wide range of disciplines, not least the physical aspect. So this correlation of actually building capacity feels even more pertinent and even more relevant in relation to voice. Are we comfortable with this idea of arriving at a place of a more enriched skill set or a more diverse skill set, which actually enables us to express in a more expansive way? Have we actually built in that felt sense to sit with that, receive that.